Okay, so welcome back to this channel. So in this video we are going to complete our Stripe part. Okay, in our previous video we have created the Stripe checkout session, and now in this video we are going to complete the Stripe process, and we will create a new order when the payment is successful. Okay, and we're going to use Stripe webhook that I will discuss in a minute. So first of all, let's create our model for the order. Okay, because we have to create the order when the payment is successful. So simply go to my backend, go in the models, create a new file. I call it order.js. Okay, so first of all I will import here mongoose from mongoose. Okay, and then const order schema is going to be mongoose dot schema. Okay, in that first of all I have to create my field for shipping info, because I have to save the shipping info. All right, and the type is going to be mongoose dot schema dot types dot object id, because we have to store the id of the shipping address. Remember that we have a separate model for the address. Okay, so we only save the id here and then we can use that. Okay, so now required is true, and then for the reference I will add here address. Okay, now in the same way I have here shipping info, then I have here the user that has created that order. Okay, and that is going to be user. Okay, so now we have shipping info and user. Now let's create our third field, which is the order items. Okay, that user is purchasing, and that is an array of all the items. Okay, so first of all in the object we are going to have our product that user is purchasing. Okay, and I will simply type here reference, that is going to be the product, because we are saving here the product id. Okay, and then after the product I have here name, which is going to be type string, and required true, and actually we also have to type that here. I don't know why I have moved that. Okay, and then after the name we are also going to have the other details. Okay, so name, and then I have here the quantity. Okay, and then the image, I will only say one image URL, and then I will type here the price of that product. Okay, I have here name, quantity, image, and then the price. And now you also have to save the payment info of the user, or sorry, of this order. So payment info, in that first of all I will store here the id of that you can say that Stripe id. Okay, because Stripe give us id of each payment, so we will save that id. And then I have to save here the status of the payment. Okay, so that is going to be status, and then the tax paid. Okay, and then I will use here tax paid, and then the amount paid. So amount paid, and these are going to be number fields. Okay, and for the required, these fields are actually also required. Okay, so I will set that here. So this is our payment info, in which we're going to have our id, status, tax paid, and then the amount paid. Okay, and at the end we are also going to have the order status. Okay, so type is going to be string, required is going to be true, and then let's type here only the default. Okay, so I will give a default value here, that is going to be processing. Okay, so by default the order status is going to be processing, and at the end we are going to have our created at. So created at, and type is going to be date, and default is going to be date dot now. So I will add the current date while creating that order. Okay, so this is our order schema. Okay, simply save this one. Now let's export that. So I will simply type here export default mongoose dot models dot order. Okay, or I will check that if that order exists we will use that, otherwise we will use here mongoose dot model, pass in here the name of the model, that is going to be order, and then the schema, which is going to be the order schema that we have just created. Simply save it, and now this is our order model. Okay, so save it from here and close this file. So now let's first of all discuss what is webhook. So first of all, what is webhook? In simple words, you can say that webhook is just like a callback. So when a specific event occurs, we will simply run our code in which we can basically save our data to the database, or we can do our processing. Now what is Stripe Webhook? You can see that here Stripe uses Webhook to notify your application when an event happens in your account. So when a specific action triggered, Webhook notify us that, and we can run our code in that moment. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we are going to accept the payment from the user. So we are going to check that if the payment is successful, then we have to create the user order. Okay. So for that we will use Stripe Webhook that will notify us that. Okay. So for using that we have to set up the Stripe CLI on our computer. So you can go to this URL stripe.com/docs/Stripe CLI, where you can basically install the Stripe CLI. For the Mac users, you can simply run this command and it will set up the Stripe on your Mac. And for the Windows, you can simply download the file from the GitHub, and then you can use that command prompt to run the Stripe commands like Stripe login and other commands. All right. So set up the Stripe CLI according to your operating system. I have already done that. Okay, so now let's first of all log into our Stripe and set up the Stripe webhook. So I simply go to my terminal. So I create a new terminal here. Okay, so I simply type here Stripe login. Okay, so now I will press here enter. It will move me to the Stripe dashboard for the authorization. I will simply click here allow access. So now access is granted. It closes from here. Now if I go back, you can see that here done. This Stripe CLI is configured for buy it now with the account ID this. Okay, so now we are successfully logged in into our Stripe from our CLI. Now we have to set up the Stripe webhook here. So for that I will simply type here first of all Stripe. Okay, Stripe listen, then dash events. Okay, then checkout dot session dot completed. Okay, so we will check that if our checkout session is completed, this means that our payment is successful, then we have to create our order. So I will use here dash forward dash to, and then I have to type here the URL that is going to be localhost port 3000 slash API slash orders slash the webhook. Okay, that we will create in a minute. So we are going to check that listen for this event, that if checkout.session.completed is triggered, then we have to forward our request to this endpoint that is going to be slash API slash orders slash webhook. In that we are going to create our new order. Okay, so if I press here enter, you can see that it will set up that for us. So now you can see that your webhook signing secret is this. Now we have to copy that and add that in our env file. So I will copy that from here, copy that, then I go back to my VS Code, open my next.config.js, and then here I will add stripe underscore webhook underscore secret. Okay, so I will paste that here, simply press your command S, save it, and now we have added this in our env file, and now we have set up our webhook. Okay, so now let's create our webhook controller function. So I simply go to my backend in the controllers, in the order controllers. Let's do that here. I will simply type here export const webhook. Okay, that is going to be async, in which we have access to the request response, and then I will add here try catch block, and I will log here if there is any error. Okay, so log the error. All right, so now first of all we have to create here the event. So I will type here const event is going to be stripe dot webhooks. Okay, remember that we are using Stripe webhooks here, dot construct event. And you can see that here in the construct event, first of all have to pass in here the raw text body, which is the payload, then we have to pass in here the signature, and then we have to pass in here our Stripe webhook secret that we have just copied. Okay, So now to get the raw body in Next.js, we can simply use a package that is called raw body. Okay, so I will install that here. Okay, so npm I raw dash body. Okay, so let's install this package. Okay, and now to get the raw body, I will simply type here const raw body is going to be await get raw body from raw body, and that we will pass in here the request. Okay, so it will automatically provide us the raw body. So let's pass the raw body in here. All right, now we have to pass in here the signature, and we can get the signature from the headers. So signature, that is going to be request dot headers, and that is going to be stripe dash signature. Now we have signature here, we will pass that also here after the raw body. And now we have to pass at the end, we have to pass in here the process dot env dot our stripe webhook secret. So that is going to be stripe underscore webhook underscore secret. Okay, so we'll save it, and now this is our event. So now let's check here that if event dot type is equal to checkout dot session dot completed. Okay, so we will check that if our event type is going to be checkout dot session dot completed, this means that now we have to create the order. Okay, so what I will do here is I will simply first of all get in here my session. So const session is going to be event dot data dot object. So this session will contain all the data that we have set in our stripe checkout session right here. Okay, because you have to create the order, now we have to get the details like line items, shipping information, this shipping information, the user details. So we can get that from the session, and we can get the session from the event dot data dot object. So first of all, we have to prepare our object that we have to pass while creating the order. The first thing we have to pass is the order items. Okay, so remember that we have set here the line items. Okay, if I type here const line items, that is going to be await stripe dot checkout dot sessions dot line list line items. Okay, so it will give us all the line items. In that we have to pass in here the id of the session. Okay, so id of the session is going to be event dot data dot object dot id. Okay, so it will get all the line items for us. Okay, if I just show you here log line underscore items, save it, and if I type here npm run dev. Okay, and before that we have to actually set up this route. Okay, so I will go here in the pages, in the orders, create a new file that is called webhook.js. Okay, so I will copy that from here and add that here. Okay, so I will simply remove this is authenticated from here, we don't need that here. And we need here this webhook, which is going to be webhook. Now we also have to disable the default body parser of the Next.js because we want to use here the raw body. Okay, so for that we have to disable that, and to disable that we can simply type in here export const config, that is going to be API. In that we have our body parser that is going to be false, so it will disable the default body parser. Okay, so I will simply save it from here. Okay, so now let's test it out. If I go back to my Chrome and let's go to cart, checkout, let's select the address and click on checkout, and let's see if it works. I add here my payment details, the dummy card, and here CVC, click on pay. So payment is successful. If I go back to my terminal, you can see that here we get here checkout.session.completed. Okay, and if I go back to my VS Code, you can see that here in the terminal I can get here the line items. So object is list and data contains these items. So in the item we have the, you can see that description, which is the name of the product, currency, quantity. In the price we further have price details and other details as well. Okay, so now let's extract that and create our order items. So I go back, and now let's create a function here. You can also create that in a separate file, but I will create it here. Okay, that is going to be async function, and the name is going to be get cart items. Okay, in that I will pass in here the line items. Okay, so now we will simply call that function here and pass in here the line items. So now we have to extract the all data from the line items and prepare our card items. Okay, so what I will do here is I will simply create here a promise. So return new promise here. I hope that you know the promise. So in that we have two conditions, one is the resolve and one is the reject. Okay, so let's create here a variable. Let's call it cart items. That is going to be an empty array at start. Okay, then I will loop through. So line items dot data dot um, for each. Okay, for each item I will have to get the details. So first of all, remember that in that we have the ID of that product. So we can simply use stripe.products.retrieve and pass in here this ID, and that will give us all the product details, because we also have to get the product name and then the product images. Okay, so I will simply type here const product is going to be await stripe oops dot products dot retrieve, and in retrieve we have to pass here the ID. So the ID is going to be item dot price dot product. Okay, so this is not the ID, we have ID in this price object. Okay, so we will pass in here the stripe dot product dot retrieve and pass in here the ID, and then it will give us back the product. And now we also have to get the product ID, so we can get the product ID from the, so this product doesn't contain the product ID that we have in our database, it will contain the ID that is present in the stripe. Okay, so that is going to be product dot metadata dot product ID. Remember that we have set here in the metadata, right here in the metadata we have set the product ID. So we will get here our product ID, and now I will have to push the details in the cart items. So that is going to be cart items dot push, and in that I will push a object. First of all, the product, which is the ID of the product, that is going to be product, that is the product ID, and then we have to pass in here the name, that is going to be product dot name. Okay, then I will pass in here the price of the product, so that is going to be item dot price dot unit underscore amount underscore decimal. Okay, so we will divide it by 100 to get the price in the dollars, because remember that this is in the cents, so we have to divide it by 100 to get back in the dollars. So we have item dot price that contains a field called unit amount decimal. We will divide it by 100, and then we get back here our price of that product. And then we have here the quantity that user is purchasing. So quantity is going to be item dot quantity. Then we have here the image of the product, so that is going to be product dot images, and in that I will pass in here the 0, that will give me the first image, and we also only have one image. So it will push all the cart items one by one in this array. Okay, now we have to resolve this promise. So what I will do here is I will simply check that a simple if, that if cart items dot length is equal to this line items, okay, dot data dot length, this means that we have successfully added all the products, all the cart items. So now we can simply resolve from here. So resolve, and I will pass in here the cart items. Okay, so now this function will give us all the cart items with all the details. So I will call that here. So I copy it from here, scroll down. So I will simply type here const order items is going to be await get cart items, pass in here the line items. So now we have our order items here. Next we have to pass in here the user ID. So user ID is going to be session dot client reference id. Remember that in the client reference id we have saved the user id, so we'll get back here our user id, and then after that we have the amount paid. So const amount, this is the total amount that user has paid for all the order. Okay, that is going to be session dot amount uh, amount underscore total. Okay, that is amount, and this is also going to be in cents, so I will divide it by 100 to get in the dollars. And then I have here the payment info. So const payment info, in that first of all I have to pass in here the id of this stripe of this payment id, that is going to be session dot payment intent. So payment underscore intent. Okay, so this is going to be the id of that uh, payment. You can also log this session to see all the values and all the fields. Okay, so after the id we also have to set the status. So status is going to be session dot payment underscore status. Okay, and then the amount paid that we have just calculated here, so amount paid is going to be this, and then you have to set here the tax paid. Okay, so to get the tax paid I will simply type here session dot total underscore details. Okay, and now this total details object contains a field that is called amount underscore tax. Okay, so in this session we have total details, in that we have our amount tax, and again this is in cents, so we have to divide it by 100 to get in the dollars. So this is our tax paid. So this is the payment info. Now we have to gather all the data and prepare our order data. So that is going to be const order data. First of all we have here the user, that is going to be user id. Then we have here our shipping info, that is going to be session dot metadata. Remember that we have stored the shipping info in the metadata, so that is going to be session dot metadata dot shipping info. Okay, and then we have here this payment info. Okay, and then we have here the order items. Okay, so these are the values, sorry, fields that we have set for the order. And now let's create the order. So I simply type here const order, that is going to be await order dot create. Okay, and that I will simply pass in here the order data, and we have to also import the order, so I will import that. So import order from the order model, like this. Okay, so that is reject. Okay, so now if I scroll down, now we have successfully created our order here. Now I will simply send here res dot status of 201, which is created dot json, and in that I will simply pass in here success is going to be true. Okay, so it will create the order and give us success true. So let's see if it works. I simply save details from here. Now let's go back to our here, and let's go to our home page. I will also add here this. I go to the cart, increase the quantity to 1, click on continue, and now if I click here this address, which is the park eve, and click on checkout. Okay, so now we have our error here that await is not allowed in non-async functions, so you have to go back, and that is going to be async. Save it, and now if I go back, reload this page. Okay, so we have here unexpected token, which is if I go back, let me check, that is going to be colon. Save it. Now if I go back, click this address and click on checkout. So we have our both products here, so this is 2 and this is 1. Now let's enter the card details. I enter here my CVC, click on pay, so it will now process the payment. So the payment is successful here. If I go back to my terminal, you can see that here we get here checkout.session.completed, and we get here 201 status code before this post for this post endpoint that have created our order. So let's open our MongoDB and let's check it. I will simply connect from here, and after connecting that I will go to the buy it now database. I will click on the orders. You can see that here we have our orders here. Now in that we have our shipping info user. In the order items we have our both order items, two this and one this. In the payment info we have here the payment ID, status is paid, and then this is the tax amount, which is the amount total paid. Order status is processing. Alright, so now our order is successfully created on the successful payment. I hope that you understand. So this is the code with which we can basically get the payments from the Stripe checkout page, and then we can use the webhooks to create our new order and save that in the database. If you have any question, you can post that in the comment section. I will definitely reply there, and also you can get the source code from the description of this video. All right. So again, if you have any confusion, you can post that in the comment section. I will try my best to reply there. Alright, so now this is the end of this video. In my next video, I will probably display all the orders for the current user. Alright, so I will see you in the next lecture.